Man, it's about time we bring on old Uncle Braden. He is the owner of 440 Sports, an incredible podcast network. If you haven't checked him out, look, as good as podcasts can be without being the Tighten Up podcast, that is 440 Sports. You've heard him on here before. You can follow him on Twitter at Braden Gall. I'm just going to get to it because I want to talk to this guy about everything that is going on in the Titans world right now. He is Braden Gall. Braden, how are you, man?
How are we, boys? Doing all right?
Great.
We're making it.
Great.
We're making it. Pretty happy after the results of this past Sunday. The Titans winning, the Chiefs losing. The stars really aligning for the Titans.
It wasn't even that either. Like I was talking to my mother-in-law, who is a diehard Titans fan, and I was like, literally could not have asked for a better day. Like every single possible result went your direction. So it's a great time to be alive. And 60 more minutes and the the Super Bowl runs through Nashville, Tennessee. How cool is that?
Even like the teams that you had no shot at the playoffs that you just hate, Texans, Jaguars, all done. So
Ravens.
Yes. Like literally it was like the perfect Sunday for a Titans fan. It was awesome. And then I'm just going to start here just because, I feel like, Braden, when you come on, we always have a lot of fun with you, but I feel like let's just not have fun at the beginning and then have fun on the way out the door.
Tremendous strategy. Yep.
It's let's just say you'd be hard pressed to make a convenience store run in Nashville right now. Like it's a Bud Dupree basically got into a little bit of an altercation, arrested. Correct me if I'm wrong. Officially charged with assault for an altercation at a Walgreens of all places. What's going to happen with this whole thing?
First of all, the last 24 months should have taught us a lot about how to approach retail shopping in neighborhoods. So just be careful out there. I actually do. There actually are a couple of serious topics. I don't know if one of them your audience would care at all about, but that is like personal privacy is having an interesting time right now in our country. That's a whole other subject. It doesn't excuse any behavior that may or may not have happened with Bud Dupree at a store, but like, I don't know. Don't you have to have like consent to record someone without their knowledge? I don't know. Anyway, there's a whole other topic there.
In some states you legitimately do. Like it's a legal offense to record someone against their will.
Apparently cell phone videos, that doesn't count yet. But again, there's a lot of digital technological issues that like our country needs to come to grips with pretty quickly. And that's not what people are here to listen to us debate, whether or not Mark Zuckerberg or Congress should be in charge of our phones, both of which are really shitty answers. I will say this, like based on what you see and sort of across the board, everything here, right? Like the citation itself, which is a misdemeanor assault citation, like generally for first-time offenders, and I think this was Emily Proud of WKRN and News 2 that reported this, that generally first-time offenders, you get an anger management class. The small snippet of the video from Broadway Sports Media didn't show a whole lot either. The police report didn't say a whole lot either. From what I've read, again, we don't know exactly what happened, but from what I've read, I've seen worse on like the corner of 5th and Broadway at like 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. So like, I don't know. Like if you kind of put it all together and try to guess, which is all we're doing, it doesn't seem like it was a whole huge big deal, just some pushing and shoving and cussing. And maybe, if there's video of if Bud Dupree like swinging a closed fist at someone's face, that's a different story, but we don't have that right now. So I don't know. He's been a hell of a player for this team the last couple of weeks. And that's probably the most important part of this off on the field is that if they miss him for any period of time, that could be the difference between advancing in the playoffs or not. So
yeah. Absolutely. I was going to say, take it back to the second half of the Niners game, and it seems like a switch was flipped with this team. And, I get it. They're still dealing with some guys out. Julio's still not out there. And while it's not perfect, it rarely can be in this league. What do you think has kind of sparked that flip, because they looked so bad against the Steelers, at least in the second half. And in the first half of the Niners was an utter disaster. And now we have a team that comes out and they were able to put together a game-winning drive against San Fran, finish with a Randy Bullock kick, and then go out and dominate a team Miami Dolphins 34-3. They were on a 7-game win streak. What have you noticed the Titans have done differently, if anything?
11's pretty good.
Mhm.
Pretty important. And I'll be, I think everybody saw the graphic about the rushing attack, 8 games with Derrick Henry. And I'm assuming we'll talk about Derrick Henry's return here soon, but 8 games with Derrick Henry and 8 games without him. And like the numbers were like eerie. It was like 213 carries, 228 carries, like 927 yards, 980 yards, 4.3 yards a carry, 8 touchdowns, 8 touch. Like it was crazy how similar the numbers were. And you wouldn't have guessed that, even though we know the rushing attack's been solid, but the offense has been so anemic that you ask all these questions. Like I think we have proven commodities and known commodities, and I think we have some questions about upside. I think the defensive line is a known commodity. I think the defense itself is becoming more of a known commodity. This is a team that's top 10 in red zone defense, top 10 in third down defense. They're number 2 against the run. They're number 6 in scoring defense. Like they're basically one of the best 10 defenses in the NFL, and certainly one of the better units in the AFC. And what was the mantra all offseason? Well, if this defense, it doesn't have to be great, but if they can just be average, then this team will be a contender for the Super Bowl. Well, they seem to be even better than average on defense. So to me, that's sort of a known commodity. If they line up with Dupree, Autry, Simmons, Landry, and whoever else, whether it's Tart or whoever else, with that now very deep collection of linebackers with Cunningham, Long, and Brown, and Evans, and like that is a front 7 run, like just that's a bunch of dogs in the front 7, and that is where you start with this team. That's what will give you a chance to win. On the other side, I think you have a proven commodity in Derrick Henry. You have a proven commodity in A.J. Brown. The offensive line looks to be rounding into form back to where it's like sort of all together, the band's back together along the offensive line. I still think they have major questions about getting into a shootout, having to throw the ball 30 or 40 times, coming from behind against a Chiefs or a Bills team, perhaps, even though they've beaten both of them. I think that's where you still have some questions about this team. I think you take away Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, and Derrick Henry, and an offense is going to struggle. Like, I don't think it's more complicated than that. I think it took Todd Downing a long time to adjust to that personnel. And I think we saw against Miami 4 separate moments where he called play action on 3rd and short and around the goal line. And because they're able to run the football, those play action plays worked. One of them was a bootleg for Tannehill. 2 of them were touchdown passes by Tannehill, and the other one was a 3rd down conversion. That was 4 play actions, but the reason it all worked was because they were running the football. So I think there's lots of upside with the offense, but I still think there's an unknown commodity as they get healthier with what this team can do in a shootout situation. And they may not get into that shootout situation, but that would be my question is, I don't think there's been a switch that's flipped. I think they're getting healthier and the defense is doing its job. And we'll find out if the passing game, Todd Downing, Ryan Tannehill, the health of Julio and AJ and Derek, we'll see if all those pieces are good enough on offense to win a shootout, because they're probably going to have to win a shootout at some point.
Do you think there's anything to be said for the I guess the newfound depth that they have on offense? Because there's a lot of guys throughout this season that have kind of cut their teeth and earned some experience that they probably wouldn't have gotten had Julio stayed healthy, had AJ stayed healthy, especially at the wide receiver position. But I mean, even guys like Dontrell Hilliard and Jeremy McNichols got more carries than they would have had Derrick Henry been healthy. So do you feel like that plays into any I mean, I guess like betters their chances at all coming down into the playoffs?
I think conventional wisdom is, of course, any players that have reps all season that feel more comfortable knowing the offense, knowing what they're supposed to do on any given snap or any given read, or understanding they've been in the fire on 3rd and 6, and so they know to cut a crossing route down when they're playing against zone, and Westbrook-Akine can settle in instead of continuing his route. Like I think there's always going to be value in all of that. The weird thing, though, about this question to me is the pieces that you're talking about. Some of them just cannot be a factor if Derrick Henry's on the field. Like
Right.
Like I think Dante Foreman has obviously been great, but like he can't be the guy he's been the last 7 weeks if you've got Derrick Henry. So I think the real question is about the receiving core. And I think you go back to camp and, Chester Rogers was doing pretty good things in camp. I think a lot of us saw him doing good things in camp. Nick Westbrook-Akine, of course, wide receiver 1.
No doubt.
There's obviously
without question. No, yeah,
without question. So
NWI probably the greatest Titans receiver in the history of the franchise.
I would, it's funny, like losing. This sounds weird, but like losing Michael Pruitt is gonna hurt. Like that's weird to say, but like it, yeah, sure, they'll run like a couple of play action throws for like 3.5 yards to Jeff Swaim. Like cool, okay, and Ferkser obviously caught the touchdown, but the pieces that need to develop around AJ Brown and Julio Jones, I would say Nick Westbrook-Akine and Chester Rogers have probably done a pretty good job of gaining experience. And does that add to the depth? Sure. Do you want Ryan Tannehill on down by 4 on in an AFC Championship game, having to throw to Nick Westbrook-Akine and Chester Rogers? You'd like the luxury of doing that because they're triple teaming AJ Brown. Or what you want it to be out of necessity based on play calling, not necessity based on personnel and injuries, I guess would be my question. But do I trust those guys now a little bit more because they've been in the fire? Probably. I don't think that, like, that seems pretty logical to me. I do not want to see a box score that has 12 targets for Nick Westbrook-Akine in a playoff game. I don't know how I'm going to feel about that if I see that. I don't know how much I want Ryan Tannehill throwing the ball more than 18 times in a playoff game, frankly. I mean, that's how they got to the AFC Championship game 2 years ago.
Yeah. Well, Ryan Tannehill also most come from behind wins in the fourth quarter and overtime since taking over as starter in 2019. So, that almost doesn't really even matter who's at wide receiver. I mean, he was doing it with Khalif Raymond, for goodness sake.
Don't talk about Khalif Raymond that way.
Yeah, come on, Detroit Lions legend right now, Khalif Raymond. Hey, Braden, the offensive line is getting healthy, and not only are they getting healthy, but I think they put together their best performance of the season against the Dolphins. No sacks. The only quarterback pressure allowed was from Quessenberry, but they kept Tannehill clean. The Titans ran for 198 yards, Foreman 5 yards a carry. How important is it for that group to have finally, at least from what it looked like, to have finally gelled? And now they're doing a fantastic job with Hilliard and Foreman. But let's be honest, the job only gets easier once King Henry comes back.
Yeah, no question. I agree that it's a very underrated part of the win against Miami. I mean, it's a complete domination, so sort of every part is a pretty good part. But
Yeah.
I think people look, you know how everybody is on the internet these days. Like everybody's either amazing, they're going to the Hall of Fame, or they're garbage, right? Like there's no in between. There's no nuance. Miami's a pretty good football team. They're not great. They're not really good, but they're okay. And what's really good about them is their defensive line. Like they've got guys that are 5-star recruits, that are high draft picks, that get after the quarterback. Number 1 pass rush in the NFL. I think most people know that about Miami. So the job they did protecting, and you mentioned basically every single lineman didn't give up a single pressure. A lot of that's because they ran first and they were running the football. And again, I had AJ Brown in my fantasy lineup against my father, and I was tweeting, "Run the damn football!" It just, because from the beginning you could see it was working, and so they stuck with it. I think the 198 yards is what people gravitate towards, but I think the 1 sack and the 0 pressures from 4 out of 5 guys is more important moving forward, especially as you watch TJ Watt get like 11 sacks in a game. Like you have to protect the quarterback and win the line of scrimmage in football, college, pro, high school, Pop Warner, whatever. And Ryan Tannehill's been sacked more than anybody not named Joe Burrow. That has to change in the playoffs. So Henry helps that, but I think having some stability along the offensive line, like guys in and out because of COVID. Lawan's been injured like 5 times. Like
Saffold goes down twice a game.
Right. Like, so I think having the guys all aligned together, which is a big part of what last year's success was, right? Is they all, even though it wasn't Lawan, it was stable. It was the same group of guys that were going at it every single week for at least the last 6 or 7 weeks of the season. And so I think that's what you want to see. I think Titans fans, you've been through a lot this year. The team is really pretty good. The culture in the locker room is outstanding. Robinson and Vrabel are brilliant, but being the healthiest you've been all season in the month of January is the most important part of what's happening right now, in my opinion.
Golden Tate was released from the Titans. What's your favorite memory of his in two-tone blue?
I'd like to be snarky about Golden Tate. I just always think fans want the flashy name, like, that's done things.
Yeah. Jack and I are probably victim A and B of that. Every single time.
Yeah.
And yet it doesn't really ever work in free agency. I mean, like, I think Julio Jones has been an asset. I can make a case of how he's been an asset, but what are his total? I couldn't even tell you how many passes he's caught this year.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like Jadeveon Clowney. We can go, this does not normally work in the NFL. You can select a piece or two here or there to supplement your roster to win. But if you look at the best franchises in the league, they are built through player development, like scout teams and the draft picks. And I know Jon Robinson gets a lot of heat for how he's drafted the last 2 years. But if you look at this roster and you look at who's playing on this roster, every single player gets better when they come here. And every single main piece of that puzzle that you're watching on Sundays was brought together by Jon Robinson. Look at the front line. It's Bud Dupree, it's Danico Autry, 2 free agent signings. I know I just said that those aren't the best ways to go, but you can supplement with the right pieces. And Danico Autry, like, the most underrated player on the entire team for the Colts for like 3 years in a row. This is not a new thing for Danico Autry.
Yeah.
He's just being Danico Autry in a Titans uniform. But drafts Harold Landry, develops T.R. Tart, drafts Jeffrey Simmons, drafts David Long, drafts Jayon Brown, drafts Rashaan Evans, acquires Zach Cunningham for nothing, just like he did with Tannehill. Like, he goes out and puts the pieces together, and Vrabel builds the culture. Robinson selects the ingredients, and it's worked.
And Vrabel's getting a ton of love for Coach of the Year, mainly locally. Obviously, it takes a little while for the national media to pick up on things they should have covered when it comes to the Titans. But Jon Robinson, you mentioned it, all the work that he's done, and it's not just before the season. It's not in the draft. It's not the guys he brings in before the season. Even in the season, like Zach Cunningham, you talked about him. 6 years in, Jon Robinson has had 6 straight winning seasons, been to the playoffs 4 times. The first time the Titans won the AFC in the regular season since 2008. We don't have to talk about what happened later in that 2008 season, but so far, what do you feel? Do you feel like the Titans fans and the fan base just underappreciates Jon Robinson at times? Because, his hits are home runs. He has big hits, but he's got big whiffs. And I think a lot of the times throughout the first round busts, like Isaiah Wilson, second round Kevin Dodd, stuff like that kind of soils his perception. But how do you feel? Do you think that the Titans fan base properly appreciates Jon Robinson?
No. I also think the Titans fan base concerns itself with things that it doesn't need to concern itself with.
You think so?
Wait. As I just answered the question about Golden Tate, I just all right, I got to be careful here. Number one,
no, don't be careful.
No, this is the one place where you don't have to be careful. We are 2 of the most irresponsible podcast hosts on planet Earth.
So Titans fans, like, you are by far the most sensitive fans I've ever seen in my, and I am technically a part of the national media. As an ESPN radio employee, I'll claim national media when it helps me make an argument.
Yeah, no, you flex that muscle,
and I'll disavow it though when it hurts my credibility. So just give me a second. But I'm not even kidding. I've covered every team across the country in both college and pro football for probably almost 15, 18 years now. And I cannot think of a fan base that actively seeks out grievance more than the Titans do. Like, I could tweet out, like, man, Najee Harris is a good football player. And the Titans will be like, what the fuck, guys? Like,
why aren't you talking about Derrick Henry?
How is this?
Yeah. Oh, Najee Harris. Have you ever seen Derrick Henry, dude?
Ever heard of a guy named Derrick Henry? No, it's like, can I just say something about someone else and it not be a slight at you? Anyway. So that's part of the problem. But the other part of the problem is just, and this goes back to sort of joking about social media and the internet and how what engages people is what gets elevated in your algorithms and like all this stuff. But like, what engages people is a first round bust. What doesn't engage people is how many 3rd and 4th round starters there are on the team.
Right.
Like, that's not sexy. That doesn't drive headlines or clicks or RTs. Like, that doesn't do the job. What does the job is bitching about Isaiah Wilson, or but I could also point to all the other first round picks that have been good and that are, you would not be in this position if it was not for Jeffrey Simmons, like period, end of discussion. Like, and that's it. You know, AJ Brown was a name that we all thought was a high, late first round, early second round pick, clear stud. Like you even mentioned Kevin Dodd. There were like a bunch of other draft picks around Kevin Dodd that were extremely good in that draft class. So, and and almost every trade he's made has been just ridiculous. Like
Ryan Tannehill for Ryan Tannehill, and what was it, a seventh for a 6 and a 4 or something along those lines.
Yeah,
I mean, it complete steals. Dennis Kelly and DGB.
Miami paid 3/4 of his salary. I mean, getting DeMarco Murray was the first thing he did. Like that's for basically peanuts and the dollars. And then he, in his first draft, he trades and acquires like 5 other picks and still gets Jack Conklin, an eventual All-Pro in the draft. You guys must be reading the Twitter account there at Braden Gall. 6 years. 6 years. I tweeted this yesterday. 6 years with Jon Robinson. The Tennessee Titans are 58-38. They have 6 winning records, 4 playoff appearances, and their point differential is plus 173. All right, 58-38. Here are the numbers. The 6 years before him.
Oh gosh.
33, 33 and 63. 33 and 63. 30 games under 500. 1 winning record, 0 playoffs, and here's the kicker. Negative 443 point differential.
Oh God,
that is quite a bit of points.
That's a 600 point swing.
Robinson came in, so it was Ken Wisenhunt and Milwaukee took over, and I think it was 2015. I mean, it's 5 wins in 2 seasons combined. It's amazing the turnaround.
And where are they? And they have been to. And then let's add Vrabel into this because he's the one who brought in Mike Vrabel. Let's be very clear: who hired Mike Vrabel? I agree, absolutely, unequivocally. Your NFL Coach of the Year right now. A record for most players played in a season at 88 because the dudes are just hurt. You lose your best player for half the game. Like all this guy has done is 4 winning records, 2 division championships, 3 bids to the playoffs, a 2,000-yard rusher. He ended Tom Brady's career as a Patriot.
Yeah.
What else do you want to see from Mike Vrabel? Like, sure, do you think he goes for it too many times on 4th and 2? Fine. Who cares? Like, the guy is clearly a winner. And what he's overcome this year as a coach and through the lens of Jon Robinson as well is just, it's remarkable what they've done this year.
Well, a lot of people like to clown on Kevin Dodd being a bust, but people forget that he's a defensive player of the year nominee in my 2017 Madden franchise.
Braden, the amount of times I've heard that.
I forgot about that.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's like if Jon Robinson didn't draft him, he wouldn't be in that position on my franchise. So he does deserve a little bit of credit for that signing. For that
that not a total loss. Right?
I would completely disagree, but that's okay. We can agree to disagree.
Hey, Braden, shifting gears towards the postseason. I want to do a dumb power rankings game with you. Okay, just play along. Just that's
redundant, by the way.
Okay, well, yeah, good point. So
no, power rankings are the best.
It doesn't even have to be power rankings. Just give me 3 teams in the playoffs. With the number 1 being the team you'd least like to see. Give me the 3 teams you'd least like to see if you're the Titans.
I'd rather do power rankings of bourbon or Nashville records of the year. I could do music and food, but
what was it? You did a power rankings on Twitter. It was right before we had you on last. I forget what it was. Which power ranking?
Oh, it was like leafy,
probably like Mets shortstops.
Yeah, what was it? I think it was leafy greens. Like I think I had
leafy greens. Leafy exactly greens. What it was. Yeah.
And you know what? Since the last time, Kale has made a big move up the power rankings.
You're on Kale now.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm cooking with it a lot. It's great in soups. I don't like it like in a salad. It tastes like garbage. But like if you cook with it, it's fantastic. I love Kale. It's fantastic.
Is that because of the Rebels kicker, Kale Nation?
Kale Nation, yeah.
Yes, 100. Obviously,
they need a new kicker down there in Oxford.
If here's the beauty of the Titans situation as the 1 seed, a lot of these teams scare me. If they were at home. Buffalo would be number 1 if it was in Buffalo. Kansas City would be number 2 if it was in Kansas City. And I can't decide between Cincinnati or New England. I think New England, just because Belichick is this genius, that bothers me.
Yeah.
But as a rookie quarterback is going to get got at some point in the postseason.
Yeah. Joe Burrow will have his time down the road, but I don't know that this year.
Cincinnati's an interesting one. That's the problem. I mean, 900 yards in 2 games is pretty good. So my question about Tannehill and getting into a shootout, like, again, if the defensive line just has that one off day where they can't pressure a quarterback. They're just not getting home, right? And you've got weaponry all over the place, which would include Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. If you give, and like, let's be honest, they also didn't really stand up to Buffalo until the fourth quarter. They allowed Josh Allen to throw the ball anywhere he wanted to that entire game. They could not run the ball at all, which is interesting. If you just have that one day where like Bud Dupree just doesn't get home or Harold Landry just doesn't get home, and all of a sudden the other guy's got time, those three quarterbacks are terrifying. So with their weaponry too.
Joe Burrow feels like just like the magician's sleight of hand, though. It's like, oh, hey, look over here, Joe Burrow. That Cincinnati Bengals defense is kind of sketch, like kind of question.
I agree. I know Buffalo to me is number one in a cold weather, cold situation where physicality matters. Buffalo to me is the scariest team. That's they've been the scariest team since they were like the 7th seed a couple of weeks ago, and they rattled off a few wins. Now they feel like they're back where they're supposed to be. Probably going to get a home game in the playoffs. The Buffalo team is the one that I look at and I go, which one has all the things that you need to make a run for a Super Bowl, but also challenge this Titans team where their strengths are. And if you could just protect Allen, the way he can get around in the pocket, move, make plays with his legs, the weaponry they've got, I know there's Christian Fulton, but there's not a lot of people that match up with Buffalo's weaponry. So, Kansas City and Cincinnati both have some sick weapons too. So this is winning the Super Bowl is hard, boys. It's hard.
Yeah. Tell us about it. Haven't even done it yet. Now you said you could talk Nashville music.
If I have to,
a guy who may be returning to music very, very soon here. Isaiah Wilson has been cut. Are you excited for his next mixtape? Because now he's got new ammo to freestyle on.
I know this looks like a T-shirt for those watching anywhere you're watching this.
On YouTube, A to Z Sports.
My Mustang Lounge T-shirt. I know it looks like it's the T-shirt of a strip club on the Cumberland Plateau, but it is not. It's a Jason Isbell T-shirt.
Jack and I were both thinking it. In fact, we were in the Zoom chat, just privately chatting. Like, I think that's a strip club. And the
point is, yeah, it is. The point is of that weird reference there. As a non-hip hop expert, even I thought it was pretty unbearable. So
really, you didn't nothing. You're not bumping that in your car.
Groundbreaking stuff here, boys. Isaiah Wilson. Not good at music.
Yeah. No, it's not that groundbreaking, but yes, you are correct.
Better at football or music, though?
Ooh, it's a toss-up.
That's genuinely a good question. Probably football. I would say football.
Okay.
Definitely football. Okay, yeah. I change it. Definitely it's football.
You can mask a lot of things with that size. My last question for you, before we get you out the door, going back to the Bud Dupree video, have you ever seen that many people in Bud Dupree Titans jerseys?
He had a lot of fans.
Wasn't it a 48 though? Like,
yeah, it was a 48.
Okay,
like Titans jersey. It was a Bud Dupree jersey, just like a whole crew. And that was my first clue. Oh, that's his family. Like that, because I've never seen that many. Bud
I found
Dupree.
It to be a pretty veteran move on his end to also command one of his posse's guys to go grab the phone. That was very smart. You got to grab the phone. We got to make sure this thing.
Someone's watched a lot of Shonda Rhimes TV shows. Like that's a scandal move for sure.
Possibly criminal as well. But whatever. Neither here nor there. I don't as a grown adult male, I wear a jersey like privately at my house when like my favorite team is playing when no one else is like watching.
I got mine right here.
So I mean, at the game, I think you could do whatever you want. So it clearly was after the game. So guys, if you're adult wearing a jersey of your boy, like I don't have a problem with that. Attacking retail store workers, let's work on that in camp next year, and let's get that out of the game.
If you're going to get into an altercation after a game, throw in a jersey of a guy like we kind of want to cut anyway. You know.
Just a Golden Tate jersey.
I don't own. Yeah, exactly. I don't own any jerseys, but I did used to have 3, and it was Jay Cutler in Denver, Jay Cutler in Chicago, and of course Jay Cutler in Miami. But those have since been lost.
As a Green Bay Packers shareholder, I'd like to thank Jay Cutler for our Super Bowl in 2010.
Yeah. Well, he is Braden Gall at Braden Gall on Twitter. Check out at 44 or at 440 Sports on Twitter, on all the socials, Instagram, everything. And check out all of their podcasts. Great content. Including just bite-sized content that Braden puts together of Nashville sports news, everything. Guys, check out 440 Sports. Awesome.
Which one's your
work that he
favorite,
does over
Austin?
there. The daily one, your Nashville. That's my go-to podcast.
And what's it called?
I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's what is it called?
It is called The 440. It's very creative.
The 440. Okay.
Sort of like the Dave Matthews Band.
The Stephen Godfrey. I like Stephen Godfrey. I'm an Ole Miss guy, so
good.
That's one for me.
That one's called Fringe Element, by the way.
Okay, last one before you get out of here. You are Austin. Failed to mention you're a emergency host for the Feinbaum Show. Who's your favorite caller?
Clearly Jim in Tuscaloosa.
Oh, okay.
Who posed as Jack from LA, which for those who are uninitiated is Lower Alabama, not Los Angeles.
Oh yeah.
And I talked to Cheerleader. I talked to I-Man like 4 times.
I-Man's a crazy guy.
Talked to Litigator, but Jim from Tuscaloosa was my favorite because he just comes on the air and he just completely berates me. I believe moron was the go-to word a couple of different times because I had the audacity to explain the college football playoff COVID protocols factually to an audience of sports fans.
Yeah.
And
why would you ever have to do that? You know,
right. And all I did was have, I took my heat and basically I'm from and I know, Austin, you'd appreciate this. I'm from the Steve Gorman school of interaction with sports fans, which is if you take time out of your day to call my radio show and tell me how stupid you think I am, that you've taken time out of your day just to make sure that I know how stupid you think I am. God bless you, man. God bless you. I love it. I love it. I love it on Twitter. I love it on radio. I love it on God bless you guys.
Makes everything more fun. Yeah.
It's engagement, and really that's kind of like at the root of what we do.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Those are my people, man. Those are unfortunately those are my people.
Braden, enjoy your evening tonight at the Mustang Lounge. Tell Candy and
Cinnamon.
And Tanya. Oh, is Cinnamon working tonight?
Yep, Cinnamon.
Cinnamon.
Okay.
Yeah, Cinnamon's a manager.
Then tell Cinnamon I said hi as well. Actually, tell her Gunzunga. She'll know what it means.
Right. All right. But Bubbles will be there too.